So hello, welcome to the new video. This time I'm playing the new league, the scuba diving and exploring the deep waters. Let me give you a warning before you commit yourself to this build and you're gonna waste your currency. Now, this build relies on detonating the specters. I'm using the dark marionette because they're gonna be reviving themselves. But the problem in this build is this. The dark marionette, they're gonna be moving in the left, right, and they're not gonna be actually listening to you because of the minion and I. So either you're gonna have two options. Either you're gonna have to manually sometimes cast them with convocation, or you can have automation setup that I have, and this solves kind of the problem that this build has. Another warning that you need to take into account for this build is that this build is not a league starter. Once you finish up the campaign and you hit level 73, then you can start it. So unfortunately for the leveling campaign, you're gonna have to use a different build. Since my passive tree is like a very generic minion build, I was playing Absolution, and couple respects that you're gonna have to do, but overall from the level 12 when you get the Absolution up to maps on the tier 5 who was able to get a couple chaos just to start this build, I was playing Absolution, and after that I was playing this detonating spectre build. So if you're interested in what type of a content this build can do, I would say like this. Skip the Ubers. That's not the budget for the Ubers. And if you're interested in legions, I would say technically you can do them, but I would be very against that. Probably it's better to find some kind of build that's designed for legions. I started streaming on Twitch, so feel free to drop by. The link for the Twitch channel is in the video description. But the other content that I'm doing on this build is mainly Blight and Alpha. That's my two favorite contents, and this build does it exceptionally well for the amount of currency that it spent on that build. So I would say it's a very good build, and I would actually recommend it if you need to level up a witch, because like every single league, I need to level up a witch. I need to generate enough currency because I want to ultimately play a custom crit build. That's always my goal, so I need to reach that goal somehow. I'm mostly done with the Atlas. I have all of the basic maps, such as the 100 maps that the game requires you to do, and that's what you're seeing on the screen. This is my second void stone. Now I only have to kill the Shaper, Elder, and Maven. That's the last two void stones. A couple of unique maps, invitation, and pretty much I'm gonna be done with the with all of the Atlas. There's gonna be no more updates with the builds, so as soon as you get the POB, that's it. That's what you're getting. There's gonna be nothing more. So if you like the build, or you never played that build and you wanna do some improvement or something like that, probably you're gonna have to do it yourself, or maybe you can find other content creator who actually plays this build, maybe in the past. As usual in my video, you have a lot of timestamps that you can just click, and it will take you to the moment of the video that you wanna hear, and I will give you as much as description and feedback and other stuff that you need to know about the build, just to make your build and your progression very enjoyable. And I will leave you with this clip of the boss fight, and I will see you after the fight. To make the life a little bit easier, I will highlight you everything in the POB, like passive, ascendancy, and so on. And I would assume that you're going to be actually starting as an Absolution minion build through the campaign. So you still take the elementalist, but your first 2 points should be Shaper of the Storm. This will give you a little bit extra damage whenever you use Absolution. You are going to apply the shock, and your minion is going to be doing a little bit extra damage. Your second point is going to be Bastion of Elements. This is just gonna give you a little bit tankiness. The third one is the Shaper of Flame. You should take this roughly before the second Kitava, and there's gonna be not much of a use of this before, unless you're gonna transform the build. And then lastly, you need Mastermind of Discord, but you need to apply exposure somehow. I'm doing that with the gloves. That's how you're gonna get this bonus from this Ascendancy. So that's gonna be a very late game, once you get some kind of decent pair of gloves, and you're gonna apply some lesser orbs until you get the fire exposure implicit on your gloves. there is a possibility that if you feel that you're tanky, you're fine, and everything is cool, you could respect those two, the shields, and go over here. This will give you a little bit more AoE and a little bit more boss damage. But personally, I'm against those 2 points. They give you, yes, a little bit more damage, but this makes you really tanky and really makes the mapping comfortable very easily. To start this build, you need 2 things. Firstly, you need to buy the helmet. The helmet allows you to detonate minions, because there's the line that grants level 20 Death Wish. And this is the Death Wish, and you can just click on the minions and you're detonating them, and the damage starts going on. The second thing that you need to buy buy Dark Marionettes from the trade, and ideally they should be level 83 or higher, not lower. Because, you know, in higher level your Dark Marionette it has more life and therefore more damage. And the gems that you're gonna be keeping in your helmet is gonna be Deadly Elements, Burning Damage, Ignite Proliferation. This is very important to have Ignite Proliferation, and then you're gonna be having Unbound Element support. So you might be wondering why the Ignite support is such important, since probably you're gonna go on PoE Ninja or somewhere else, and you're gonna see that a lot of people are not using it, or they're using Cruelty. It really comes down to the quality of life. What's happening when you're going to be playing with the Ignite Proliferation, when you detonate a minion will leave like a red ring on the floor, and that is your Ignite. This really comes very handy when you're doing blights and you detonate one of your minions around the portal, and when the new mob just spawns from that portal, since your Ignite sits on the top of the portal, they're just gonna die. That change is gonna repeat all the time because your Ignite is over there. You can see that very clearly in Blight, in Harvest, in any league mechanic or any type of a monster. When he dies, he resurrects, or there's some kind of small odds and, like, you know, crappy monsters. That's why the Ignite Proliferation is very good, and you should be actually using it. Unless, you know, let's just say you wanna get a couple more mil damage and you don't care about the quality of life, then yeah, replace the Ignite Proliferation with the Cruelty. You will get about roughly, let's just say, 5 more mils. But at this stage of the build, this is absolutely not relevant. The quality of life of Ignite Proliferation that it gives, it is far superior than having couple more mil damage. Now moving on, you're gonna be using the Scourge, the Claw. Pretty much the only stats that you might be interested in this Claw is the increased attack speed, because this will just make your Whirlwind Blade a little bit faster. The rest of them, you're like, yeah, I'm not interested. If you're not interested even in that attack speed, just get the cheapest as possible, the Claw, and just move on, because the unique stats, let's call them like that, for the minions, they don't roll, they don't have like a minimum maximum value, they're always the same. So, you know, if it costs 1C, just take it. And the gems that you're keeping in your Claw is faster attack, Whirlwind Blades, and a Frostblink. That's just for your movement around the map and hopping over the ledges and so on. Then you have rings. Polaric Devastation gives you cover in Ash, if it's on the left slot, and you ignite the enemy. If this is too expensive, what you can actually do, you don't use it, use Mark of Submission, and this will apply automatic curse for you, and you can just socket flammability over here, and you have a cheap curse and hit ring for now, because the ring is 1C, so pretty much you're gonna pick 1C from the ground. The second ring, in my opinion, is far more important than Polaric Devastation, is Berek Respite, because this is gonna increase all of your ignite and shock proliferation much bigger, and this will make the quality of life, like mapping, far better. But when you're on the boss, when you're doing some kind of bossing, this ring is pretty much useless. It gives you some fire damage, flat damage, and that's it. So this ring is just primarily when you're mapping. Moving on to my amulet, the only stats that you're looking on the amulet is the damage over time, maximum life, one prefix open for the -7 non-channeling skills. This helps you up with the mana. Then you anointing Tesundo, because that's, you know, just block chance and so on generally. Then you're moving on to the chest. Again, the chest is quite easy because you just have to buy a chest. There's the only rolls that happen over here is just the mana and the armor. So it's like just get whatever you can. And you only have 2 links in this chest. And that's very important. Very important. Have only 2 links in this chest. And you might be wondering, because the last line, as you can read, it gives you -2 sockets, levels to socket gems, right? So in this case, I'm using my spectre and I have +8, and I'm using a minion life, and don't socket anything else. So when we're speaking about specters, ideally what you want to do is get your spectre to up to level 29 like me. So how do you do it? You would have to have there's a couple possibilities. You could have a chest like this one, corrupted +1 socketed gems. That's fine. You can have +2 minion socketed gems. I don't know exactly the wording, and that's gonna be fine as well. Or you can buy a service of a Rise Spectre level 21, socket in this chest, and you're gonna have level 29. So why the level 29 is so important? Because in level 28, if you read the last line, the Rise Spectre are level 84. If you're gonna be playing on the level 28, the Spectre is gonna be 82, and your corpses that you currently can buy from the markets are 83. So you would nerf your damage a little bit. That's what you're trying to get to level 29 on the Rise Spectre. Temporarily, sure, you can play with 28 and it's gonna be fine for vast majority of the time, but ideally you wanna have a 29. Now moving on with the gloves. Gloves are pretty much something like life, chaos resistant, and whatever else you can get. The more important line is you're trying to get the implicit for the inflict fire exposure, because this is how you are gonna be applying the exposure, and since you're applying the exposure, actually the mastermind of Discord is gonna start working. So the gloves go hand to hand with this Ascendancy. If you don't have the gloves and you have the Ascendancy, it's pretty much they don't work. And the sockets that you're gonna be keeping, it's gonna be Enlighten, and you have Tempest Shield, Malevolence, and Purity of Elements. Now, Purity of Elements can be swapped for Determination if you want to have a little bit more tankiness, if you're fine with the resistance, because generally like Shock, Ignite, and Frozen can be done with the Pantheons, with the Tempest Shield, and so on. So the only thing that would be affecting you, it's like the chill, but you know, that's like a flexible option for you. You can pick whatever you want over here. Now for the boots, what you're looking for is like movement, life, chaos resistance, any other resistance, and whatever you can get. Implicits on the boots are not that important. You can get like Ignite deals faster damage, something like that. This will give you a little bit extra damage. I have like chaos resistance, and you know, that's fine. There is a possibility that you could craft the boots with the essence modifier that increases maximum life for minions, but that's like something like endgame that I would do. And in this setup I have my cures like Flammability, Arcanis Brand, Hex Pass. This is just to bypass the hex proof enemies, and Flame Surge, that's just like, you know, why not. Then moving on, the shield. The shield, what you're trying to do is actually get as high as you can block chance on the shield, and then you're trying to have the minion half increase life, because pretty much that's like, you know, your damage. And I have some like resistance, I'm missing life, but you know, it's whatever. And what I have actually is automation called Vocation, just to make sure that I'm teleporting every now and then the specters to myself and I can detonate them. And I have a steel skin. Now for the belt, again, life, chaos resistance, and the other resistance, and any other things that you can find, it's gonna be fine. Pretty much the build is very flexible when it comes to, like, you know, gearing. So in this PUB, you're gonna get two different trees. If you hover over here in this section, you have before hubris and after hubris. So what does that mean? Hubris is a timeless jewel that's gonna be socketed in this position over here. So before you even start, because obviously this really depends what time of the league you're gonna watch this video and the prices of the items. That's why there are two different skill trees. The before hubris is generally for everyone because there's nothing that you cannot have in this, because it's just simply simple passives that you have and masteries, such as you have a bunch of stats just to help you out with, like, you know, with gearing processes, like with resistance over here, more stats, you have auras over here and here, just, you know, to release the pressure from, like, you know, gearing while, you know, doing all those the early mapping. But once you finish up the early mapping, then you switch over, you back over here and you use after the hubris. So after the hubris, there's, like, you know, more points and so on. So what's happening, as you might notice, this section got destroyed because this section just needed some stats and some reservation of aura, but this is going to be fixed with this timeless jewel and with the enlightened level 2 at the bare minimum. So you're chopping down. Then if you use the militant the elegant hubris, this passive over here that's going to be Kaspiros is going to give you that you're not gaining any stats bonuses, but you don't care about stats. So if something requires 700 strength and you don't have the strength, you simply don't care about that. Another nifty trick that you can do, since the, like, intelligence doesn't give you anything useful, you can use tattoos for, like, every single node that's supposed to be giving you intelligence. You can just have it as a increased maximum life for minions for 5%, and you can tattoo all of that on, you know, all of the nodes. And on the strength nodes, you're gonna be using block chance. This will help you out, making the character a little bit tankier. Since you gain a bunch of points from chopping up, you know, the stats, this over here, you're able to go and have, like, a cluster jewel, and, you know, and I have, like, a very basic 8 points minion passive with, like, you know, with just damage and so on. And then I have, like, two medium ones. They are the same, just, like, you know, maximum life of the minions, because for us that's a damage. And this is, like, a generic rare that have, like, minion damage and minion life and some resistance, and pretty much this one is the same thing. So there's a little bit of a change, you know, after you transform from, like, a non-hubris into a hubris passive skill tree. Flask are very simple. You're using a hallowed life flask with the corruption and bleeding immunity, just in case, you know, you run out of the bleeding immunity on all your other flask. Quicksilver flask just to give you a little bit of movement speed. Sapphire flask with the reduced curses and gain charges. Then you have granite flask with armor and gain charges. Then you have topaz flask that with, like, you know, gain charges and bleeding immunity. While mapping, this will be pretty much all the time, but just in case if this goes down or whatever, you click some kind of modifier for the reduced flask, whatever, and you're gonna get bleeding, this will solve the problem temporarily. So those two and steel skin help you with the corrupting blood and bleeding immunity. Pantheons are straightforward. You're using Amulet because I'm doing the red altars, so I need to be not affected by the burning ground. The major one is the Brand King, it's mainly for the stuns, or you could use Arakali if you're struggling with the chaos resistance. But that's pretty much it. For the bandits, again, this is quite easy, you know. If you have enough resistance, you can take a point. If you don't have enough resistance, you take a lira. This is a very simple choice, and you should be decided, you know, between you and your build. Right, so whenever you're doing some kind of gear changes and so on, there's two things that you have to remember. Either do it in the main town, so, you know, you just go to, like, the random Act 9 and you do it over here. Why do you do that in the main town instead of doing it in the hideout? Because there is a possibility, for some reason, whenever you lose the stats, instead of your specters going on the floor and you being able to resummon them, you will lose them. So have that in mind. The town is the safest option. Or the second option that you can do, you can go to your hideout, and if you want to corrupt your chest or something like that, then you remove your specters. As you can see, they go on the floor. Then you hover over your ice spectre and you just summon them again, one by one, and you have them. So that's like a warning that you should be aware of. I mean, at this point of the video, thank you for watching. I will see you later in my next video. That's gonna be a custom crit.
So you have chosen death.